All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back. Let's see. Last time we were on, live was what 2 weeks ago? Because last week we had the Coelacanth's Tale, which was scripted, pre-recorded, and all that jazz. So no live show last week, but we're back now. Yay! And joining me is my host and co-host Peter.
Hello, with my co-host
Hello.
Harley.
Our host, co-host.
Are you sad? No, 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 no. We're not doing that. Okay.
We are sad because we're missing
kind of
Nestle today.
yes. So now he thinks that he can take over the show because Nestle's not here. Hit.
You need to give him his own square on the screen.
What I need to do is not have him watch Arn Raw videos anymore because he's picking up all kinds of bad habits from Arn's dogs. So, well, and now we have the Zoomies. It's
Zoomies. Let's see. Who do we have in the live chat? We got Dragon Spartan 90 official, Jamie E, Trail Mix DM, Luca was a Trilobite confirmed wing, Jake Nelson, and Smitty. Hello, welcome all. Jesus is your co-host, Smitty. Is he going to take the wheel or the screen? I guess I don't know. The keyboard, perhaps.
Yeah, I wouldn't let him take the wheel. I've seen things where people let him take the wheel. It doesn't end well. 9 out of 10 times. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, he was around before, cars were a thing, so I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, before driving licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe with some training, maybe he'd be all right on the road. But right now, I wouldn't let him. So the breaking.
I did learn a thing when it comes to that on Arn's show. We have our designated Young Earth creationist, and so he said that in the Bible, the donkey or the ass is referring to the natural man. So I made the remark. So Jesus was riding donkeys all the time, and donkeys are the natural man. This explains why he never got married. Then he got mad at me for some reason. I don't know.
One of my favorite jokes I've seen on Twitter was the real miracle was that Jesus was in his 30s and still had 12 friends. So
yeah, well, and I mean, yeah, for a lot of people that is the same. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So anyway, Jake Nelson's right. Everybody hit like because we know that you love all of this content, but we don't have a love button yet. So maybe YouTube will make one of those. I don't know. Although I guess we have the subscriber tiers now, or membership tiers, which we talked about a few weeks ago. Finally set those up. So if you guys want to be members, you can do that now. So there you go. And somebody mentioned that we should change eukaryote to protist for just to make Dapper angry. Which I think would be funny. I'm considering it.
Is that a Hovind reference? Because Hovind used to talk about eukaryotes a lot, and now he's changed to protists as well.
Well, Dapper doesn't like when I say protist because protist is a polyphyletic term. It's not a true taxonomic category, and so Dapper doesn't like when I say it. And so it's just kind of funny. He's like protists aren't real.
It's bad. He also mispronounced it because I distinctly recall Hovind only says protista.
Well, protista was the taxonomic name for the kingdom. There was the kingdom protista, but individuals are protists or protists. But it's not a kingdom anymore. Anyways, it's protista was broken up into like 10 or 12 different like super groups. So they're all very dispersed and all that jazz. So
we all know the new kingdom is called Dinosaur Adventureland. It's in Lenox, Alabama. That's the new kingdom. I mean,
Yeah. I would not recommend that kingdom. Just
no,
saying.
no, better skip that one.
Um, Smitty says you could make protist a form rather than a clade. Yeah, they do include multicellular forms. Yeah, it's true. You could sort of think of protists as a grade because they're unicellular, or well, predominantly unicellular. Um, and so eukaryotes start out originally as unicellular, and then they independently achieve multicellularity through a variety of methods, or in a variety of lineages. It's really all the same method. They do what's called clonal multicellularity. So basically, all of your cells have the same genetic material, except for your gametes, of course. And so everything that's multicellular, that is like truly multicellular, uh, does reproduction that way. The body, the thallus, is um, clonal. All the cells are the same. And it's true for us too. All of our cells have the same genetic material in them, at least in theory. Um, it If you get really down to like the nitty gritty of it, it's technically not true because the vast majority of our body cells are red blood cells by biomass, which don't have what would be biomass? Or I guess by number. By number, not by biomass, I guess. So the majority cells in our body are red blood cells, which have no nucleus at all. Because their job is not to make proteins, so you don't need a nucleus. Instead, they need to carry oxygen to and fro across the body. So technically, most of our cells are, I guess, at one stage you could say they're clonal genetically, but whatever. Then there are some cells that have like extra copies of their genome and stuff like that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about that today. So, uh,
Well, Smitty said you could also make protists synonymous with the eukaryote, so that we would be protists, thus making Dapper a protist,
that's true.
which
That
is
is true.
what Hovind is doing at the moment. I don't know who tipped him off on that one, but yeah, he's got his new favorite word.
Some people are chimera and have cells from different originally fertilized eggs. Um, there are some strange phenomena with like chimerism, genetic chimerism in different clades of eukaryotes. So, like I'm trying to think. I think it's in weevils, for instance. They have like the bacteriomes, which are these little like organelles that have bacteria in them. I think it's weevils, and that is like partially from like the egg originally, but it's like a combination of like the egg and maybe the sperm also, but then some of their other cells. It's very weird. They form these weird uh, structures, and there's also like um, triploidy in plants when you have, which is what you have angiosperms with their double fertilization. And there's a whole lot of weird chimerism stuff that goes on in nature. Um, so it's all very strange. Biology is weird. Biology is very weird. I'm sure I
Mm-hmm.
can remember. Well, I can't remember offhand. I'd have to look it up, the bacterium stuff. But anyway. Oh, and RJ has shown up. Hello,
Yeah,
RJ.
Archie's.
Bacterium. Um, I'm trying to see if I can find. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, sorry. Uh, in armored scale insects, the bacterium has unique genetic and sexual properties. They have 5 copies of each chromosome, including 2 copies of the mother's complete genome. Yeah, that's right. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah. 5 copies. Weird stuff. Pentaploidy. Um, Dapper is fine with most pelagic organisms, just not tunicates. Very true, Trail Mix. He is not okay with pelagic tunicates. So be sure to not send him lots of pelagic tunicates. Um, okay, well, let's see. We're continuing with DiscoveryU, the university that isn't, or
Mm-hmm.
the YouTube channel that thinks it's a university, or something. Blog
Yeah.
thinks it's a university. Um, Intelligent design people, creationists, they all have this idea that like they recognize that people take accredited universities, very seriously, and so as a result, they um, pretend to have accreditation. So they call themselves things like, the Institute, the Discovery Institute, the Prager University, Discovery University, things like that. When, of course, they're not universities, they have no accreditation. Um, you don't get any skills at all from them, as we've seen over and over
Mm-hmm.
with DiscoveryU. Um, DiscoveryU, it doesn't even have citations in it. There have been like no citations anywhere at any point. It's all like bullet points, right? It's just
Yeah.
a sentence that you can repeat, but they don't tell you anything, any of like the details around it. And of course, most of them are lies, anyways. So if you encounter someone who actually knows about biology or evolution, then these talking points don't work at all. So,
Well,
um,
they,
yeah,
they have to try and legitimize their content. So that's
yep,
basically what they're doing. They want to be that they pretend to be something that they're not in order to, I don't know, uh, get more
yeah, one hundred
credibility.
percent.
It's just stupid. I really wish that there would be um, something in the law where you when you're not an actual school and when you're teaching predominantly lies, you can't call yourself a school or university. I don't care what you are. If it's religious, you can have um your Sunday school thing, which is a
Hmm.
kind of a school where you talk about religion. The moment you talk about science, I think you shouldn't be able to call yourself a school if you're not teaching actual science. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah,
because
I agree.
people get confused.
Yeah, absolutely. And John Oliver actually, he's for anyone who's not aware, he's a British comedian. He has a YouTube. Well, he has a show on HBO called Last Week Tonight, and the long bits in his show get transferred to YouTube. And Last Week Tonight is, well, recently put out an episode on homeschooling. And they talked about a lot of the horrors of homeschooling. One of which is that creationists love to go after homeschooling organizations, and it's very sad and and scary that intelligent or sorry that creationist and intelligent design organizations both make their own like textbooks, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what DiscoveryU is, right? It's a textbook that uh, theoretically a parent could show to a kid and think that I've prepared my child for the real world, when in fact you haven't. You've just lied to
Mm-hmm.
them, lied to your child. um and so yeah, John Oliver did a really good episode on all that. Feel free to go check it out. But it's
Yeah,
bad.
that.
Homeschooling is like, in theory, it's not a bad idea. Like, I can understand, some people may have disabilities and whatnot that may slow them down, um educational wise, but um a lot of homeschooling is also about like um, disseminating creationism. In fact, I would argue probably more of it is about disseminating creationism and other horrors than being for like kids with disabilities.
Yeah, which so homeschooling could be not a bad thing. I think so.
Yeah,
In the Netherlands, what you need to do is you have a specific curriculum that you need to teach, and you will get tests that you will have to give your children and send in the results so that we can actually monitor whether or not they're learning the stuff they need to learn. And if that's not the case, then your homeschooling is failing. It's no longer homeschooling. So
right.
um, I think that's a good system. At least have it built in that um, we check up on your kids if you're homeschooling them. Because yeah,
Oh,
if you're not a
yeah.
teacher, if you're just a creationist parent, you're probably not qualified to homeschool your kids. I mean,
Yeah.
feel free to teach him about the
Yes.
Bible. Feel free to teach him about what you believe. Don't pretend that that is actual school.
Yeah. And Smitty, I 100% agree with you on all of that. I think public school should be mandatory. Um, right. Yeah. The school isn't just about learning facts. It's also for proper socialization. I've said on this show multiple times, and I say in daily life, elementary school, the primary function of elementary school and also middle school is not just to teach facts. It's not just to teach kids how to do math and how to read, even though those are crucially important. It is also to teach them how to be functioning human beings. Sharing is caring is way more important than like you might think when you're, when you're 5 years old. You don't think much of it, but years later, it's like you realize, okay, this is the importance of sharing is caring, of having empathy for other people, which, uh, well, if you're on Twitter, you can probably see that there's not a
There's a
whole lot of
distinct
empathy there
lack
typically.
in people with having empathy.
Yeah,
It's abysmal. I mean,
it really is. Yes.
sometimes you will see someone sharing a pretty horrifying story, that something that happened to them, and then you get, well, you can this wouldn't have happened if you had Jesus, and this wouldn't have.
Right. Yes.
How you can do something like that, so just be so insensitive. I don't care if a younger creationist goes on Twitter and would say something horrible that would happen to them. I would still have compassion. We might not agree on the God thing, we might not agree on science, doesn't mean that you're not a human being and need to be treated as one. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Um. So. So yeah. I mean, yeah. So those are our thoughts on homeschooling. I think Peter and we're in agreement
Yeah.
on it. And I think and Smitty also in agreement. So without further ado, we're gonna jump on over to our university that isn't DiscoveryU and see what they have to say about the reptile to bird transition.
Mm-hmm.
So this is gonna be fun. Alrighty,
You should.
here we go. Well, fun like a lobotomy sort of way. Anyway, all right. Most evolutionists claim birds descended from reptiles, specifically from a group of dinosaurs called theropods. Yeah, that's true. The only evolutionists who don't really are what are called the bandits, like Alan Fiducia, who we talked about before. Alan Fiducia and his little group, pretty much no one really takes them seriously because they're arguing against such a dearth of data that it's just silly. Also, Alan Fiducia accidentally fell for an April Fool's joke that Darren Naish did, which was hilarious. So, you know, kind of sad. Uh, Number B, Archaeopteryx, said to be an intermediate form between theropods and birds. Yes, one of many. Archaeopteryx is the earliest known bird. Is the earliest known fossil of a bird. Did I pass elementary school? Time may tell. Thought to have been able to fly. Sort of. That's sort of true. Um, Archaeopteryx could fly, but not well. Um, so fossil bird thought to have been able to fly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could get lift. Yes, so that's true. It could fly, just not as well as more modern birds. So Archaeopteryx, if you look at its proportions are intermediate between that of like the earlier theropods and later birds, which I know crazy, right? It's a transitional fossil. Um, it also has like a brain case, so that's intermediate in size between that of earlier theropods and later birds. It's got lots of characteristics that are intermediate. It's got well, it'll talk about it in the next one, but it was getting better at flying, but was not as good as later and more modern birds. So yeah, it was claimed to be an intermediate because it has teeth, a bony tail, and wing claws. However, some living birds like the Huatzin have wing claws. Okay, so this is what we call a misdirection. So the Hoatzin does have wing claws. It has two. Emus also have wing claws, and chickens, and lots of other birds. However, there's a major difference that is hiding in the phrase wing claws. So Archaeopteryx does not have wing claws in the same that the Hoatzin has wing claws. And they're trying to pass it off by just saying wing claws as though they did. But this is called a lie. Or a lie by omission, I guess you could say. So all modern birds, all of them, Hoatzin included, have three basically they've lost their first and their last finger, and the other three fingers have been fused together, and only the second finger has or can have a claw on it. Not all of them do, but some of them do. Only that second finger can have a claw on it. So that is the case for modern birds. However, Archaeopteryx has three unfused fingers, and each of those have a claw on them. So the whole, I keep tapping my mic. Sorry. So the whole wing is three separated claws, not the one wing claw. So that's a lie by omission. It's not the same. All modern birds have the fused fingers. Archaeopteryx did not have fused fingers. It had unfused fingers like earlier theropods.
It's
right?
as if it's transitional between the arms and becoming a wing, right?
I know, crazy, right?
It's so crazy.
Wild stuff. So much. RJ says so much of the DI patter hasn't moved on from their apologetics from Philip Johnson in 1991. Yeah, not surprising. Many species of extinct birds known from the fossil record had teeth and or bony tails, but this mix of traits does not necessarily mean they were descended from reptiles. Then you have to ask why. What would that mean? Well, so perhaps such mosaics were designed to include a mix of traits of specific traits necessary for survival. This argument doesn't make any sense. Okay, the birds no modern birds have teeth or bony tails. All modern birds have what's called a pygostyle.
Well, it depends. I mean, I've encountered multiple, and I mean multiple, as not being able to count them on my fingers, unfused fingers. Creationists on Twitter who will tell you that there are still birds that have teeth, and then when you ask them,
penguins,
when you ask them to show the birds that have teeth, they go silent for some reason.
Yeah, crazy.
You will never hear from them again.
One thing, sometimes they'll who was it? There was a creationist at AIG. I can't remember her name, but she said penguins have teeth, but they don't. They have they don't have teeth. It's like they have these little like pointy structures in their like under their tongue, like little cilia, but those are not teeth. Some birds have like the sides of their beaks are like serrated. Again, that's not teeth. There's not enamel there, so it's not teeth. So obviously birds don't need teeth and don't need bony tails to survive. So to say maybe God just designed some birds to have teeth or bony tails because it was necessary for survival, you have to ask why. Why would God need to do that? Why would God need to design birds like dinosaurs for their own survival? He's God. He doesn't have to do that. The theropods that supposedly, this is the other stupid lie. The theropods that supposedly led to Archaeopteryx all occur in the fossil record after Archaeopteryx and so cannot be directly ancestral to it. We talked about this last time, I think. That's just simply not true. This is an Alan Fiducia argument. This is called the temporal paradox, except it isn't. We called Long Story Short out on this, and he did not understand the argument at all, which was kind of sad. So basically, they say like, oh well, dromaeosaurs don't appear in the fossil record until after Archaeopteryx appears, as well as a number of other coelurosaur groups. The only problem is coelurosaurs do in fact appear in the fossil record before Archaeopteryx. So like Guanlong, which is a tyrannosauroid, appears in the fossil record before Archaeopteryx. Proceratosaurus is another one, another tyrannosauroid. Anchiornis, Aurornis, Shautengia, these all appear and are feathered before Archaeopteryx. So it's just wrong. And theropods as a whole appear like 80 million years before before Archaeopteryx does. So it's just, this is a terrible argument, terribly wrong, totally backwards. And they never check it. Like, it would be so easy to verify this argument is bogus. They just refuse to ever check it. So basically, these arguments are either lies.
The problem with checking it would be that they could no longer make that claim, and
that's true.
So that's why they don't check it. It's why they stick to all the old arguments. If you wanna check the arguments, ask RJ. RJ has a ton of those, I think, in his tip.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't change because every single time we come up with new evidence, it's going to destroy more and more of their original claims, which then leaves them with absolutely nothing. And you can't have that, because then you don't have an argument anymore, I guess.
Right.
It's so incredibly weird that these people will throw the 10 Commandments at you, which distinctly says in the 9th that you cannot bear false witness, and yet here we are. All of them do that.
Yeah.
And apparently, well, so there is, Martin Luther came up with this. You can tell a strong lie if it is in favor of God, and then God will not send you to hell. He was the one who coined that you can just flat out lie to people because God wouldn't care. Which says a lot about God, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It sure does. I mean, just lie for Jesus. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So these arguments, so the wing claws thing is a lie by omission, and apparently they don't have an explanation for why early birds would need to have teeth or tails. They're just like, oh, maybe God just did it that way. Well, okay. And that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And then the temporal paradox argument, which is also just a lie.
It doesn't explain anything. God did it that way.
It doesn't.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's the 5-year-old saying just because. That is that argument. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. So proponents of the reptile bird hypothesis must explain transitions between some major differences in the two classes. Cold-blooded, ectothermic to warm-blooded, endothermic. Okay, theropods are mesothermic. They are so the theropods, the characteristic, and I always forget what it is, but the bone characteristic that indicates cold-bloodedness versus warm-bloodedness is intermediate in theropods, like in all theropods. In that characteristic shows cold-bloodedness in ornithischians. So we know some dinosaurs were indeed cold-blooded and some were warm-blooded. And no surprise, the group that's like kind of in between is the group that was ancestral to birds. Slow metabolism to fast metabolism. I think we talked about this last time, and it's like it's just a matter of like speeding up the biochemical processes, which I don't really understand why that would need to have like some major explanation. I don't know. I mean, you're doing them faster, so like, okay. 3-chambered heart to 4-chambered heart. Well, as Nestlig pointed out, crocodiles do in fact have 4-chambered hearts. That's characteristic of archosaurs in general. So, I mean, this argument also applies to crocodiles and alligators. No feathers to feathers. Yeah, that's true. And there is a really good fossil record of and ontogenetic series for the evolution of feathers and the development of feathers.
and and
So yeah,
feathers would make sense. So if you go from being cold-blooded to being warm-blooded, having some kind of insulation to keep your body warm would make sense. So
yeah,
the development of hairs and feathers would just make sense if you're talking about warm-blooded animals. And
right.
so
Typically abandon young to instincts to care for young. Again, this crocodiles do that. Alligators, the mother takes care of her brood for up to a year before releasing them into the wild. And you think all birds care for their young? No. I mean, after they hatch is what I mean. Obviously, the birds sit on the nest and wait for them to hatch, but like,
or
no, not
can get worse. Just Google cuckoo.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, because the cuckoo leaves its eggs in the nests of other birds and makes other birds take care
Yes,
of them. Yeah. Um.
and kill off their
Oh, RJ
offspring
reminded me of
while they're at it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's so great. What wonderful parental instincts they have.
Oh, it's
Um,
a great plan that God made. So I mean, as we know, God walks in delirious ways. So obviously he would have that installed somewhere. It's it's one of the things that lately Hovind is really good at. Um, Coming up with some horrific, and I really mean horrific. So we have the wasp that lays its eggs in ants, and the ants become
ichneumoniid wasps. Yeah.
yeah become kind of zombies. Yeah, how could this
Hmm.
evolve? Obviously, God did it. Wait, what? God made zombies out of ants because he thought it was
Well,
fun?
that was actually Darwin actually wrote about how that was like one of the biggest hurdles for him with regard to the existence of a god. Was he said, yeah, the fact that like cats play with mice,
Mm-hmm.
and that wasps use the bodies of caterpillars to rear their offspring. He's like, that's deeply, disturbing. And you're telling me that the all good God did that? Really? That was a pretty big hurdle for him, which is understandable. RJ points out that there was a preserved proto feather in amber. Yes, and the cool thing about that was the proto feathers were on a tail that had vertebrae in them. So again, like this is a tail with vertebrae with bones in it, right? Why why or well no sorry not vertebrae it had a tailbones in it, it had tailbones. So why would God need to put feathers on a a theropod with a bony tail? You have to ask why. Why would he need to do that? And of course, intelligent design proponents have no model. They have no explanation. It's just, well, maybe he did that. Maybe he could have done this.
To
Yeah, he
confuse the
could have.
evolutionists. That's why, Jackson.
I mean, yeah, because there's no explanation. There just isn't. Breathe using diaphragm to breathe. Uh, breathe using a diaphragm to breathe using air sacs. Well, again, dinosaurs do both. Sauropods have air sacs, just like birds, but sauropods are reptiles, right? Reptiles use a diaphragm to breathe, inflating and deflating the lung. Birds do not expand and contract their breathing cavity. They use multiple air sacs, which act like bellows, to force air through a continuous circuit in the lungs, a more efficient system, which helps give birds the high metabolic activity needed for flying. Again, theropods and sauropods, so dinosaurs. Look at this. The skeletal structure of theropod dinosaurs could not allow sufficient space for abdominal air sacs. That's literally a lie. They had air sacs. Hold on. Hold on a second. Dinosaur air sacs. Da, 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 da. And I quote, this is from the Wikipedia article. Air sacs are spaces within an organism where there is a constant presence of air. Among modern animals, birds possess the most air sacs, with their extinct dinosaurian relatives showing a great increase in the pneumatization in their bones. Birds use air sacs for respiration as well as a number of other things. Theropods, like Aristean, have many air sacs in the body that are not just in bones, and they can be identified as the more primitive form of modern bird airways. Sauropods are well known for the large number of air pockets in their bones, especially vertebra, although one theropod, Dinocyrus, shows a rivaling number of air pockets. Wow, it's almost like they're just lying. Oh, here we go. Researchers have provided evidence and arguments for air sacs in sauropods, prosauropods, coelurosaurs, ceratosaurs, and the theropods Aristeon and Coelophysis. Wow, so it's almost like, follow me on this, folks, the creationists are just lying. How about that? Like, this isn't even a lie by omission. This is just a straight up lie. Okay. All right. We can keep going. Yeah, wouldn't it have been hilarious if they tried documenting their claims? Yeah, it would, RJ, but you know, again, they'd have to they'd have to look at articles that debunk all their arguments and then put that in here. And then of course we could fact check them on this, point out that they're completely lying, and then that wouldn't look too good for them. Of course, their own followers don't care, so it's whatever. The problem with alleged feathered dinosaur fossils is that they generally aren't feathered, aren't dinosaurs, or aren't fossils. Fascinating. Okay. Dino fuzz. Some alleged feathered dinosaurs are covered in down-like material, but it isn't feathers. No. Um, the feathers on Microraptor are indistinguishable from the feathers on Archaeopteryx. The same is true of Chanuraptor, which is also a dromaeosaur. Also, like the downy feathers that are on dinosaurs like Sinornithosaurus are also, again, indistinguishable from the downy feathers on birds. So you would have to have a model that says, well, some downy feathers are actually feathers, but others aren't. So, like, how does that work? I'm very curious. Secondarily flightless birds. Some feathered dinosaurs are not dinosaurs at all, but are best viewed as secondarily flightless birds like the emu or ostrich, birds that lost the ability to fly. Citation, please. Please cite an example. Please, Peter, can you please scroll down a little bit? Do they cite any examples? No, they don't cite any examples. That makes me so sad. Okay, I've heard this claim from creationists before, but they will never commit. Actually, that's not true. I know one creationist who has actually committed to it, and he's dead now. That was David Menton, whom RJ and I cover extensively in The Rocks Were There Volume 1. David Menton does commit to the he really does say Chanuraptor is a flightless bird. Now, there were some arguments. Sometimes they'll point to like Caudipteryx, which there were actually legitimate debates over whether Caudipteryx was actually a true bird or a dinosaur or a feathered dinosaur or a non-avian dinosaur. There were legitimate debates over that, but now it's outside of the aves. It is in fact a non-avian theropod. How do they distinguish between non-bird theropods and early non-theropod birds, says Smitty? They don't. They just don't. They won't do an analysis to actually look at them. It just won't happen. They won't do it. And you know why? Because the paleontologists who work in early bird paleontology, they have a hard time differentiating birds from non-avian dinosaurs. So if the actual paleontologists who are the ones doing the research have a difficult time, the creationists are not going to do it at all. They're not even going to try. They're not going to try.
I love the claim though, because but they're talking about some feathered dinosaurs are not dinosaurs at all, but best
Right.
viewed as secondarily flightless birds. Birds that lost the
Mm-hmm.
ability to fly. So they lost the ability to fly before they gained the ability to fly, which is kind of
Well,
backwards.
they're saying they're descended from flying ancestors. It's saying like Archaeopteryx was like the ancestor, I guess, of these dinosaurs.
Which,
Well, yes, Brian. Powered sustained flight is one of the differences. Yeah, you're right, but they don't care. They just don't care.
but for that claim to make sense, then we should have birds that have the ability to fly before the birds that have lost that ability to fly. And we're talking about feathered dinosaurs, which should be before birds that can actually fly. And
Well, so
when,
like Microraptor appears in the fossil record after Archaeopteryx, so does Raptor. So I think they would say Archaeopteryx appeared and is like the first bird capable of flight, and then later some lineages lost the ability to flight. But it does beg a question, which is that are all dromaeosaurs birds? Are all dromaeosaurs flightless birds? Because or troodontids for another feathered group close to birds, or oviraptorosaurs. Are these guys all flightless birds, or are some of them flightless birds? And how do you tell the difference? Either way, regardless of which argument you take, you've got lots of problems basically,
yeah,
and they're not they're not even going to try to wade into that.
no, I
When
mean,
David meant
they make the claim that there was a Noachian flood and Noah had dinosaurs on his boat. So dinosaurs evolved in thousands and thousands of different dinosaurs right after the flood, and then all died off because people ate them. It in their mind, it probably makes sense, but I've never figured out a way how you can do this in just a few thousand years because you don't have the time to get the diversity. And we must have had some very, very hungry people considering there were only a few. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
yeah
Timelines
uh,
is not something that creationists or intelligent design proponents can do. It it won't work.
Well, I mean, as RJ likes to say, creationists have no map of time, nor do intelligent design proponents. So the map of time, RJ likes to point out how creationists and intelligent design proponents won't tell you what they think did happen in the past. They'll tell you what they think didn't happen, but they won't ever tell you what they think did happen, other than like some very broad stroke stuff. Intelligent design is arguably worse on this issue than creationists are, because creationists at least have a narrative. They'll at least say like, yeah, there was the origin like 10,000 years ago, then 4,000 years ago there was the flood, and then there's today. They'll at least give you some kind of model. Intelligent design proponents don't even do that, because they're like, yeah, the earth is billions of years old, but like God just created birds one day, I guess, and then like created mammals on a different day, I guess, like millions of years apart. And maybe God created species separately from each other, or maybe he didn't. Maybe there's some common ancestry, but it's all over the place. It's just nonsense. They have no map of time. Number 3. Uh, never knew is something in the structure of the bones that hints whether an animal is cold-blooded, warm-blooded, or in between. That's one of the characteristics. I cannot for the life of me remember what the characteristic is. Jamie E, I saw you earlier in there, or RJ. Can somebody please look up the bone characteristic that indicates warm-bloodedness versus cold-bloodedness? I cannot remember what it's called. I'm sorry, I cannot remember. Okay, frauds. In 1999, National Geographic rushed to print a major story about a fossil named Archaeoraptor, which was originally called a missing link, but later turned out to be a forgery. Okay, so several things about this. One, Archaeoraptor was never accepted by paleontologists. It was only accepted by the popular magazine National Geographic, and I actually met one of the paleontologists who looked at Archaeoraptor and was like, no, this is not real. That was Dr. Julia Clark, who has done some really cool work with feathered theropods like Microraptor, because she was the one, or on the team, I guess I should say, that discovered that Microraptor had black iridescent feathers because they found melanosomes in the feathers, which is super cool. But no, Archaeoraptor did not fool anybody. It fooled 0 paleontologists, not a single one. They ran with the story anyways, because they're reporters, not scientists, so they didn't know. So, that's why the Archaeoraptor story is actually good for one thing. It tells you don't trust reporters for your science facts. Trust the scientists for your science facts. I mean, and don't just blindly trust them, obviously. I mean, of course, you can go fact check what they say. What I'm trying to say is just reporters can get things wrong and often do, and this is a good example of that. I think we
There's
pointed out last
also
time that
there's also another thing. I recall a talk that the amazing Randy gave at some point.
Okay.
And this was about a guy that lived in his hometown, and so he was reported missing, and he was reported missing in the Bermuda Triangle. So this made headlines all over the country that this one got went missing in the Bermuda Triangle, and then the next day after it was in the newspaper, he bumped into that guy and he said, "Wait a minute, weren't you missing?" And he said, "Yes, but late last night they found me, and so I spent my the night in hospital. They wanted to check me out, but everything's fine.
Okay.
But the Coast Guard managed to find me. I had some problems with my boat." And he said nothing ever appeared anywhere in the news that he was actually found. So he's still part of the whole thing about the Bermuda Triangle, people who went missing there, because there was never a retraction of the original article. And this is because newspapers want to make money. So if you want to make you have a headline with something that is an incredible thing in any way, you will make that headline. If you then a day later have to retract all of that, that's not going to do well for your newspaper, because that's going to make less sales instead of more. And so this is what journalists do. They need to do this in this way because they want to make money. So obviously they will go with a find earlier than scientists do, because it will make them money. It's a headline. And they don't care about whether or not it's going to be retracted later on, because those headlines don't make the money. And it's sad that it happens, and especially with a thing like National Geographic, which should be accurate and not just going for the headlines, but it does happen. And it's all because people want to make money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we've talked about this on the show before. I know Aaron did a video about it way back with over sensationalization of science in like newspapers and magazines and things like that. About how, like, we talked about Ida before, the Darwinius massillary fossil. There was the claim of a beetle that had like arsenic in its DNA or something like that, which was totally refuted. It was just bogus start to finish. And there have been other things like that. Just like it's nonsense. Don't get your science from newspapers. Read the original technical literature. Like, that's all I can say. RJ points out regarding the bone endothermy issue, nutrient foramina appear to be the feature that does correlate with energetic biology. Yes. Haha. Thank you, RJ. I appreciate it. Number 4. Intelligent design would not be refuted by the finding of a feathered dinosaur fossil, but their existence is not supported by the data. Again, that's just a lie. But also, notice, intelligent design would not be refuted by the finding of a feathered dinosaur fossil. That's important. Because again, intelligent design has no model. It has zero models. They will tell you what they think does not happen, but they will not tell you what they think does happen. Uh, when we wrote the script for Professor Dave for his video on Gunter Beckley, oh, and also the one for Stephen Meyer, what you see over and over and over and over again is the intelligent design people dumping on science, but they don't ever put anything in its place. Because at the end of the day, for them, it's all just, oh, well, God did this. We're not going to question it. There's no there there. They don't care about the actual data. They're not trying to understand it. And Gunter Beckley even just comes out and says, we don't have a model and we don't need one. And like, if they don't care, if they acknowledge just openly that they don't have a model and they don't care to have one, then like, what are you supposed to do? You know? I don't know. The intelligently designed structure of feathers. Evolutionists used to think feathers evolved when scales on reptiles mutated to become frayed and somehow then gave reptiles an advantage of flight. Yep, they did used to think that, but nobody thinks that anymore. So, okay. we also thought the Earth was flat at one point, you know, and that the sun revolved around the Earth. Okay. And? But feathers and scales are very different. That's also true. Feathers essentially develop as hollow tubes that grow out of special follicles in the skin, where scales are flat, folded skin that develops quite differently. Yes. However, both grow out of, or both are descended. The follicle, the feather follicle, and the scale placode are descended from what originally starts as the same like type of stem cell, basically. So the genes that undergird both feather and scale development are at their core the same. The same placode at its very base gives rise to feathers on one end and scales on the other. It is not that that a scale became a feather. And we know that now as a result of like evolutionary developmental biology and also fossils. Evolutionary biologists no longer believe in the feathers to scales theory. That's true. The latest theories claim feathers provided an advantage by providing insulation for the organism, but that explains very little. What do you mean? What does that mean? Feathers. So the feathers, the way feathers start out, like developmentally, is yes, they're just a little tube. And or sorry, they're like it's called like a dermal papilla, and then from that dermal papilla, you actually have the feather itself. Now we do have organisms who just have like that very basic, just the little papilla, theropods, who have just that and no like they don't have like the actual feathers. We also have pterosaurs that have like little fibers that aren't feathers, but they're like the fibrous ancestor to a feather. Yeah. Prediction ID books in 21-23 won't be very different from the 2023 content, says RJ. I agree, probably. So saying they provide insulation, that is a hypothesis for their function, and it makes sense because that's what feathers still do today. They still provide insulation, like that that hasn't changed.
I just mentioned that.
Yeah, right, you did. And we found dinosaurs who are like they have their wings or their arms, I guess I should say, their arms with the feathers spread over their nest. So like Nemegtomia and other oviraptorosaurs, whom I believe we discussed them in last week or the last episode. Did any pseudoseuchians have proto feathers? No, that's specifically Ava metatarsalians. So basically the ancestors of pterosaurs and dinosaurs. So yeah, they say it explains very little, but I don't. That's not really a rebuttal.
It explains a lot. As you mentioned, we have seen dinosaurs on their nest with their wings spread out over, or their arms spread out over the eggs in order to keep them warm. So yes, it does explain. a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it is an explanation, or it's a part of the explanation. Yeah. We also know now, thanks to work on melanosomes, that feathers, or that the like the fiber, the little fibers or proto feathers or whatever you want to call them, that were in pterosaurs, as we mentioned last week, did actually have colors. So Tupandactylus had colored fibers. So it was probably showing off to females in the same way that many birds today show off to females. And like Sinornithosaurus had striped coloration on its tail, like a raccoon. So, um, so like, yeah. So insulation was part of it, but also probably sexual selection was another part. Um,
and maybe camouflage,
and maybe camouflage. Yeah. So that's a good
because
point. Yeah. Yeah.
and having feathers would also allow for having a bigger nest, because you can keep the eggs warm better if you have some kind of a proto wing to cover more
Mm-hmm.
eggs. Those would all be advantages, in evolutionary advantages. So that would
Mm-hmm.
be selected.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Yeah. Um. The feathers of the earliest bird Archaeopteryx are essentially identical to those of today's birds. I mean, that's also true of Microraptor, which is a dromaeosaur. It also has asymmetric flight feathers. So, I mean, you by that argument have to say that Microraptor is a bird. Good luck. Feathers have a trunk, barb, and barbules, which have a complex interaction to give feathers their rigid shape needed for lift while also being lightweight. Not all feathers. Hashtag not all feathers. Um, I think all feathers have barbs, but not all feathers have barbules. I don't think. Um, yeah, because I'm pretty sure like downy feathers have barbs, but they don't have barbules. So that's not true. Um, so arguably irreducibly complex flight feathers could not function unless all their features are present. Well, okay, so flight feathers have these characteristics. They have the trunk, barbs, and barbules, but not all feathers have those. Flight feathers are also asymmetric, so one side of the feather is like shorter than the other side. Um, but only the flight feathers, to be a flight feather, you have to have all those characteristics, right? If you have some of those characteristics, you can get like lift, but you won't be getting as much lift as you know as having these flight feathers.
It's as if it's not
Uh,
irreducibly complex.
almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the This isn't even an argument. The degree to which they optimize lift, rigidity, and weight would make the most brilliant aerospace engineer jealous. Cool. And am I supposed to care? Vertebrate hearts. Reptiles have 3 chambered hearts, while bird hearts have 4. No. Crocodiles. Again, crocodiles have 4 chambered hearts. The transition from 3 to 4 chambers would require severe rerouting of blood flow through the system. Would it, though? The forked abdominal aorta must be replaced with a single aorta. The septum must be extended to create a separate ventricle chamber. Veins and arteries must be extensively reorganized. Various other structural changes must be made to walls and valves. I'm not super familiar with the stuff on hearts, but I don't think that you would need to change all those things. Um, I don't think you would need to change veins and arteries much because they're still feeding to the aorta, and the aorta still feeds to the heart. So I don't know why you would need to change all the veins and arteries. That doesn't really make any sense to me. I'm not super sure about those other things. But like we said earlier, um, crocodiles and alligators already have 4 chambered hearts. So this is an irrelevant argument. You're not making the argument for birds and dinosaurs. You're making the argument for birds and crocodiles from their common ancestor with like lizards and snakes, right? So you would have to argue that crocodiles and alligators are separately created from lizards and snakes and turtles, which, I mean, okay. Whatever, I guess. This raises the problem of non-functional intermediates. I don't think it does. I do not think it does. Horses.
It would depend on the
Horse.
function. How is it non-functional? I mean, is
Oh, you have not.
is a
Yeah, I see what
kiwi
you're
is a
saying.
kiwi a non-functional bird because it can't fly? Is an ostrich a non-functional bird? I mean, what do
Yeah,
you mean with functional? They seem to pretty function pretty well because they're still here.
right. Yeah. So this argument about non-functional intermediates is a weird misunderstanding of how evolution works that creationists often throw out. So basically, creationists often think that for evolution, that when evolution happens on a structure, you have like function on one end and then function on the other, but everything between that is like non-functional. So you have a bunch of functionless structures and then suddenly it develops function again, basically. And obviously that's not how evolution works. Um like the fin to limb transition, right? Is it's not like fins were non-functional between like Eusthenopteron and Ichthyostega. No, they were still functional. They were becoming progressively more used for a particular function, which is land movement from Eusthenopteron to Ichthyostega. But um, but fins weren't non-functional at that time. An experiment I like to point to involves a little bug called a water strider, and the genus is Ragavalia. So basically, Ragavalia has these extra little sort of little fin rays sort of things, or yeah, well, kind of like little rays. They basically help it like move faster on water. It can move upstream as opposed to its close relatives like Stradulavalia, which can't move upstream. And so what the researchers did was they took Ragavalia and they decreased the fans. They're called fans. That's what they are. They decreased the extent to which the little fans on its arms are expressed, so they're a lot shorter. And because they're a lot shorter, they don't offer the same amount of boost over water than the fully formed one does, but they still do offer a boost relative to their cousins. So that is a really good example of like, here are the functional intermediates. You can have half of a fan and it still works better than no fan at all. Having fins that can help you partially move on land are better than fins that don't help you move on land at all. And a lot of times like arguments like this just involve creationists just not knowing anything about biodiversity at all. If we go back to whales, the blowhole. How do you go from the nose to the blowhole? Well, we actually have fossils that span the entire uh, section,
Yes.
right? So we have like Pakicetus has the nose way down here, which is the normal condition for mammals. Then you have like Ambulocetus, and then Rhodocetus and Myocetus, and it's getting progressively higher up on the head. And then you have like Basilosaurus, where it's like way higher up on the head. Zygorhiza is another example. So yeah, we have fossils that span the whole transition. You can actually see the movement of the nostrils up the head. It's
Yeah.
not just, it wasn't like a single mutational jump or something crazy like that.
Well, so I want to say something. So non-functional.
Okay.
I'm doing this show with On Ra, where we read the Bible, and we have this designated young Earth creationist who joins us most of the times. And he will. We're still in the Old Testament, and he will see Jesus everywhere. So he will see crosses everywhere in the Old Testament. So the moment you said water strider, I had this stupid flashback where I thought, okay, we're going to talk about Jesus now because water strider, right? I mean, he walked on water.
Right. He strode across the water. He sure
Yeah.
did.
So it's
Yeah.
he's slowly corrupting my brain with seeing Jesus everywhere. I mean, in
Oh, Twitter
the
corrupted my brain. It's totally fine.
oh yes, yes, and even more so today, I guess since
Hmm.
uh the stupid guy took over.
Yeah,
It's getting worse and worse.
it really is. Yeah. I'm also on Blue Sky for all you people if you're not aware. I'm on Blue Sky too. Peter and I both are. So,
Yes, and I'm trying. So I have started because you get your invite codes. My oldest friends on Twitter are the people that I'm sharing the invite codes with. If you need invite codes, please reach out to people who are on Blue Sky because it's um I can't really say it's a better platform because we don't have DMs there. You can't share a
mhm.
video in a post. So that's something that I think they need to step up and get that ready. But
Yeah.
overall, the platform is what Twitter used to be,
Mhm.
where at least rules are enforced. Um, Misinformation is countered pretty well. So yeah, if you are on Twitter and you're getting tired of what it's like these days, because I get about anywhere between 10 and 20 bots following me every week,
Mhm.
which it's not helping. It's going down the drain, and he's probably going to ruin it. And I really think that Blue Sky, because it's basically Twitter, it was developed by the same people who developed Twitter. It was
Yeah.
developed
Jack Dorsey.
yeah, it was developed alongside Twitter and only split off, um, I think just before or just after Musk took over, because that was the part
Mhm.
that he didn't buy. It's a good alternative, and most of the people from the atheist community, at least, are moving over to Blue Sky. So it seems to be that that's going to be the next platform where everyone's going to hang out. And there are Christians and creationists on Blue Sky. So if you want to have that conversation, you still can. As I
Yeah.
said, the only real downside is no DMs, which I think is something they need to solve pretty quickly. But other than that,
Yeah.
I'm really happy being there.
Yeah. My unfinished journey for $5 says DI. The real world is more complicated than the textbook. Scientists, yes. Yeah, that's very true. I guess you're referring to the horses stuff. Yeah, it's very true. Horse evolution is often cited in support of macroevolution, where textbooks show smaller four-toed creatures which grow larger and lose toes until the series ends with modern horses which have hooves. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean that's true. That's true that horses originally had five toes, or well, the ancestors of horses had five toes because that's the ancestral condition for mammals, and then they lost. Well, technically, they didn't lose their toes. Their toes are like absorbed in a sense. They like fail to finish growing. Basically, is what happens. So they're still there as like splints on the side of the main toe, which is just the horse's like middle fingernail. Basically, is the hoof. Okay. Oh, so we talked about this a long time ago, and I think it's very funny. It says, but the horse body plan does not significantly evolve throughout the series, and also, moreover, the supposed evolutionary series is artificial and imaginary. Okay, so the horse, so it is both saying horse evolution doesn't matter, and horses didn't evolve at all. And I think that's hilarious because it's back to back. That's so deeply funny to me. They're not it's not like they say, the horse body plan doesn't significantly evolve, then like in a different chapter they say the evolutionary series is artificial. No, they're saying it back to back. Peter, what do you think about that, Peter?
It's something that you see happen especially with creationists, that they will make conflicting claims back to back, which is what we
Yeah.
see here. And so DiscoveryU, I still think that that is more aimed towards the young Earth creationists.
Yeah.
So I'm really not that surprised because we see that all the time. It's
Yeah.
what they do. They don't seem to read the things they write and then just keep on writing and pretending that what they just said is no longer we can't see it or hear it or whatever. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
This is pretty amazing. That just yeah, they evolved. It doesn't matter, but also they didn't evolve at all. That's so funny. In the actual fossil records, some of the earlier horses are larger than later ones, and fossils portrayed in the supposed lineage span different continents separated by vast expanses of ocean. So what they're arguing is that one orthogenesis is not true. Which, would you look at that? We all agree orthogenesis is not true. So it was not a single straight line from small horses with 4 toes to large horses with 1 toe. Because I know, shocking stuff, evolution is a branching pattern that's just about biodiversity. It's not goal oriented. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's
and then
also
the supposed.
it's also kind of weird because humans lived along mammoths, and we today have dwarf elephants. So apparently, we can't have dwarf elephants because reasons.
There are bigger ones before them. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
I mean,
No, fake news.
yeah, it depends. It depends on the environment. So the dwarf elephants are found on, I think, on an island where they need to
Yeah,
be
Sicily.
smaller because there's not enough food for a larger animal to sustain the population. So they would become smaller. It's why
Right. Yeah.
is this
Well,
a
I mean,
problem? And
I don't. Again, I don't. They're not thinking about like the implications of their argument. They literally just want to like. They will throw every. Um. Really? Wait. Hold on. Hold on 1 second, Peter. Smitty said, "Congratulations on all the money you're making from these ads." Are you guys seeing ads?
if you've monetized the channel, then yes, it's possible that during a live show it will just stop and you will get ads and then it will continue with the live show. But yeah, I've seen that
Oh,
happen.
are you guys missing part of what I'm saying? I'll
No, no, no,
pause.
no, 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 because they will still see the entire show, but it's just cut off and then
Oh,
it will
just
continue later.
oh, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that. I didn't even know that. At
Yeah.
least 3? Jesus. Oh my goodness, I had no idea. Weird.
Oh, Smitty says the ads talk over you. Oh, that's not good.
Wait, they talk over me? You mean like okay, so wait, do the ads is it like the ad pauses and then at the end of the ad it like picks up where I left off or like it goes to where we currently are? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, my experience was that it will just stop the show and then it will
It just stops the
continue.
show. Okay.
But
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess
I
I'm
mean,
fine with that, but it just
so
huh.
we it could be that there has been an update where things aren't working well. Last Tuesday I did a show with Arn and I really really panicked because I usually set up the show an hour early and I did the same thing on Tuesday. And when I opened StreamYard, it wouldn't recognize my camera or my microphone, and I couldn't change it anymore, which is uh, pretty horrific if you're producing the show because basically my camera and my microphone are I need the microphone to communicate with the people in the panel if something goes wrong or if there's something
Right.
that I need to tell people about. My camera is also what the people who are part of the show are seeing. So they will see the show as it goes out on YouTube. If I can't have my virtual camera from OBS directed into StreamYard, they have no clue what the people are looking at. And I got it fixed by completely restarting Chrome, basically. But apparently that was just me being lucky, because everyone who was on the show got an email from StreamYard that they had problems where people couldn't assign their microphone or their camera. And it apparently screwed up a lot of live shows across the planet for people who are using StreamYard. And this is it's StreamYard is great to do your shows with. One thing they need to learn is, if you're going to make an update, first test it, please. And then don't do 3 or 4 updates a week, because that's just stupid. Keep the amount of updates to a minimum.
Well,
I mean, great. You found something new, you want to introduce it, but it's driving me nuts at times.
All right. Well, we're just gonna. Okay, we're just gonna keep going. I don't understand this, but I'll think about it later. Okay. So the thing about lineages span different continents. That's the Eurasia was connected with North America for much of this, or for at least part of the Cenozoic. So, okay. I don't. Horses move. They're kind of famous for that, you know. Okay. Horses famous for staying in one place, I guess. Whales. According to evolutionary thinking, certain groups of fish evolved into land-dwelling animals with legs, some of which eventually evolved into mammals, and some of these mammals later returned to the sea and evolved into whales. Yep, that's true. Evolutionists also claim that the fossil record supports this presumed transition from land mammals to whales. Yep. Even if there are fossils that look like potential intermediate forms, if the overall evolutionary story does not make sense, then the fossil cannot be transitional?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Have you seen a penguin? Because that is transitional into something that is going into the sea, that used to fly and used to be in the air. I mean, how can it not be transitional? Explain a penguin to me, please, because this is something you can see going on right now. It is happening again, not with a mammal. This time it's a bird that's going into the sea. So how is this not happening if we can actually see it? It's the dumbest claim ever.
Yeah, I don't even know what this means. Okay. Many changes would have been necessary to convert land mammal into a whale. Okay. Emergence of a blowhole with musculature and nerve control. I want everybody who's watching to do a little something for me. I want you to wiggle your nose. Wiggle your nose.
Yeah.
You emerged your blowhole. There you go.
Yeah.
As we said earlier, the blowhole already existed. It's literally just the nostrils. Smitty, what supercontinent includes Europe, Africa, Asia, North America? Well, not in the Cenozoic. In the Cenozoic, all the continents had basically broken up. You had Laurasia, which was North America, Europe, and Asia. I guess you could call that, or if you wanted to say like Africa plus Europe and Asia, that was Afro-Eurasia. But Europe, North America, and Asia have not been connected to Africa like alone. Don't think. I guess it'd be like Afro-Laurasia, I guess. If they were all connected, I guess. I don't know. Weird. Modification of the eye for permanent underwater vision. You can already, your eye already does that. You can already see underwater. Ability to drink seawater. That would actually, I mean, that's a modification of your kidneys, but you're not like evolving a new structure. You are like just increasing your yeah, I mean, I guess Smitty, I guess you'd be like Afro-Laurasia, I guess, is what I would guess. Afro-Laurasia, I guess. Anyway, um yeah, that's just modifying your kidneys. That's not, you're not gaining any like new abilities per se. Forelimbs transformed into flippers. I mean, look at a dolphin's fin. It's just a hand. It's a hand with very long fingers. That's all it is. Modification of skeletal structure. That is true of literally every species on the planet. Ability to nurse young underwater. I mean, it's just nursing, but underwater. Okay. Origin of tail flukes and musculature. I mean, again, tails already have muscles in them. That's just part of having a tail. Um, so fun fact about the evolution of tail flukes is a step in their evolution was actually predicted on evolution, and that's it was predicted that whales went through a stage where they had beaver-like tails before they had the more famous tail fluke that we recognize today. And in fact, I think it was Paragocetus was discovered in Peru that has or had that beaver-like tail fluke, almost like evolution makes predictions. Crazy stuff. Blubber for temperature insulation. Okay, I mean blubber's been evolved in lots of different lineages. Smitty. I'm not reading that, but that's very funny. Um, yeah, I mean, blubber has evolved in multiple lineages. Like walruses have blubber. It's just fat layers. That's all it is. You're just layering your fat. That's not new. I don't know what you want. Each of these changes would necessarily involve many mutations. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what is many mutations? What does that mean? These are weasel words. The fossil record requires the evolution of whales from small mammals took place in less than 10 million years, which is not enough time for these complex features to evolve. Again, there's no evidence for this claim. This is just a claim. There's no evidence. Biologist Richard Sternberg, who is an intelligent design proponent, I might add, has examined the requirements of this transition mathematically and concludes too many genetic rewirings, too little time. He's just a creationist also. Sorry, I'm not really impressed with him. Whales show that on the rare occasion when there actually are fossils that show potentially intermediate traits, unguided neo-Darwinian evolution is invalidated by the short amount of time. That doesn't mean anything. Again, this doesn't mean anything. Nothing at all. What they're referring to is like the waiting time problem, which we've gone through and talked about how it's stupid on a number of occasions, and nobody in biology uses it because it's totally useless. And so there's no argument here. There is no argument. They're literally just saying, it's just too short. But they have no evidence. There is no evidence at all. No experimental, no observational. It's all just these like theoretical mathematical arguments. There is no actual attempt to reference any real world organisms. So, all right, use healthy skepticism. If that's not irony, I don't know
Yeah,
what is.
I was just going to say Google irony.
Yeah, Google irony.
Oh.
Scientists and the media alike have shown a tendency to rush to judgment when citing missing links to promote evolution of the public. When the scientific and popular media excitedly announce the discovery of another missing link, the public is well advised to maintain a healthy skepticism. You know, I agree with that. I 100% agree because the term missing link is a bad phrase. It doesn't mean anything. It is bad.
Yeah.
Don't use it. Don't use that phrase. So
Speaking about cringe,
okay.
the title of the next chapter. Kind of.
What's the title of the next chapter?
Who's your daddy?
Who's your oh boy, this is gonna be human evolution, I bet. Yes. Explain what fossils, genetics, and the mind suggest about human origins. Chapter 17. Ooh. Which side of your family is most likely descended from ape-like ancestors? That has to be a joke. I'm hoping that's a joke and not like a serious question. I really hope.
I mean, if I don't know if it's the same thing in other countries. If you're Dutch, the answer would be my mother-in-law definitely is descended from apes. I mean, in Dutch humor, the mother-in-law is usually the butt of most jokes when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, I think that's true here in America too.
Yeah, I think it's slightly worse in my country though. I don't know. We do have jokes like this guy sees his friend walking in the street and he's all dressed up, has a nice suit on. He said, "What are you wearing a suit for in the middle of the week?" He said, "Just buried my mother-in-law." And I said, "Your mother-in-law? But she wasn't sick or anything. How did this happen? Did she have an accident?" She cut her finger in between the door and the surroundings. And I said, "But that's not going to kill you, though, is it?" And he said, "No, it isn't. But she screamed so loud, we had to put her down."
Okay.
So that's the kind of jokes that Dutch will tell about their mother-in-law.
Oh. Sorry, Aunt Jared. I didn't realize I'd missed your question. What's it called when animals' blowhole default position is closed? I don't know. But harbor seals sleep underwater because of it? I don't know. I don't know what that's called. I'm sorry. I also didn't realize I'd missed it. My bad. I don't know. Jamie E. or RJ, can one of you guys please look that up? Because I'm not sure. Okay. Learning objectives. I can define paleoanthropology as the scientific field that studies human origins. I can define and distinguish between hominids and hominins as the following. Hominids belong to family Hominidae. Never let your kid marry a Dutch person. Oof. Which is a family including humans, great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, and all species leading back to their alleged most recent common ancestor, and two hominins, a smaller group within the family Hominidae, only including humans, chimpanzees, and all species leading back to their alleged most recent ancestor. Okay, so they're using hominin in the sense that it includes chimpanzees. Usually I see hominin as just human, is just the human side of our split after our split from chimps, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. It either is fine. I can describe Australopithecus, meaning southern ape in Latin, as an ape-like genus thought to have arisen about 4 million years ago in southern Africa and went extinct about 2 million years ago. Okay. I can describe Australopithecus afarensis as a species that includes the famous fossil Lucy, which is thought to be ancestral to humans. I don't think afarensis is ancestral to humans. I don't think it is. I'm sure they're like poisoning the well to say, like, look at all these differences between afarensis and us, so they can say that we're not actually related. I can explain that recent analyses show Homo habilis is more accurately classified as being within Australopithecus. That's fascinating, because actually Todd Wood, who is a young Earth creationist, and Peter at Paleologos say the opposite, that Australopithecus sediba is actually a member of the human Barraman. So that's fascinating that they take the opposite position. Very interesting. Okay. I can describe the genus Homo, meaning man in Latin, as the genus which includes Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and our own species Homo sapiens. Well, yeah, and a few others, but yes. I can compare and contrast Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and our own species of Homo sapiens according to the following facts. Homo erectus is an extinct member of the genus Homo, which lived from about 1.9 million years ago until 100,000 years ago, walked upright and was similar to modern humans from the neck down, had smaller skull size than modern humans, though within the range of modern humans. That's kind of dishonest, but all right. Neanderthals are an extinct. So I guess I'll pause for a second there. When you say within the range, so the problem here is not the range, it's the average. If the average is, if like you have a range, which is like, like I don't know, your range encompasses data points from like 0 to 1,000, but the average is like 300, right? Those are very different. You know what I mean? And so what they're trying to do here is pretend like, oh, well, Homo erectus falls within the range that modern humans exhibit. Well, that's probably true. But we're not concerned with the range. We're concerned with the average, which is different. The average Homo erectus and the average Homo sapien are very different in their cranial capacity. So this is also like a lie by omission.
I'm kind of blown away.
Neanderthals are an extinct
I'm kind of blown away by the other claim. He walked upright, was similar to modern humans from the neck down. Wait, what? So what did it have? A dog skull? I mean, explain that to me, because
they're saying because it had smaller skull size and it did have a larger brow ridge than we have, didn't it?
Yeah, but so if you're going to compare the two, the skull size is not the only thing you're going to use in your comparison, right? I mean, how about the ears, for example? The
I think ears are pretty close. I think they lacked a chin, but they had a much larger brow ridge than we currently have.
But it's still the skulls would still be similar, even though they're smaller. They would still be similar to other Homo.
They are.
So
yes,
choosing this weird thing from the neck down, that's the part that just blindsided me. I guess.
Well, and let's keep in mind, because Australopithecus, all of them, and all great apes, and all modern Homo have all the same bones. We have the same bones in us that Australopiths have. The only difference between us and Australopiths are the relative proportions of the bones. They don't have more than we do, and they don't have less than we do. They have the same number. It's just different proportions. So keep that in mind. Neanderthals are an extinct member of the genus Homo, which dated from 200,000 to 30,000 years ago in age, looked nearly identical to modern humans, except for slightly larger and thicker skulls, and are often portrayed as primitive when in fact their anatomic, genetic, and cultural data suggest they were capable of speech, art, and culture, and may have been a sub-race of our own species. Wow, okay, that's weird. Okay, so this is very weird. Basically, okay. So what they're trying to do is they're just trying to say that Neanderthals are modern Homo. They're not. We have the entire Neanderthal mitochondrial and nuclear genome, and we know that they fall outside of like, put any phylogeny that you do where you compare Homo sapiens to Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalensis, they fall way outside of our species. Way outside. So they are not a sub-race of humans. This is just a lie. Or subspecies, whatever you want to call it. They're not a subspecies. They are a separate species.
I think I know why they make that claim. And that is
because they look too much like us.
Not just that, but because it had culture, it had art, it had burial rituals. So it might
Yeah.
have something along the lines of a religion, maybe even. So
It's possible. There's
that
there's a
would
lot of
make it,
debate.
yeah, that would make it very human, which to them then they have to lump it in with just modern humans.
Yes. Right. A separate species, a separate creation of God could not have its own separate culture.
It couldn't be as
Right. That it
special
has to be
as
human.
man is. That's
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying. That so if it's
Yeah.
this close, if it's got all the characteristics of modern man, then it then you have a problem because then it might be created in the image of God, like we were. So it has to be lumped in.
Neanderthals were the true Nephilim, Peter. Don't you know that? They were
Oh,
the Nephilim.
don't talk about Nephilim again because I still have nightmares from the guy who said that dinosaurs were the result of lizards mating with the Nephilim. Um,
Oh no.
and he was going to provide
Um.
evidence, and then I don't know what he did, but he got banned from Facebook, from Twitter. He got banned everywhere. So I have no way of getting back in touch with him, and I want that evidence. I mean, this is lizard sex. It was a thing on our channel for quite a while. Thing that we're
Yeah.
looking forward to of hearing about, but yeah, it never happened.
Smitty points out that non-ape animals also have culture. I mean, yeah, and it's true. Other apes have culture. Chimps, as Jane Goodall's work showed, have different cultures that are not found within all of the different tribes. So, like one single tribe of chimps will have a particular way of like cracking nuts, or like grooming their relatives or something like that.
Oh damn!
Whereas other tribes will not have the same method for doing either of those things. They're not transmissible between their groups.
I got another flashback
So
from the
yeah.
same guy. So I had a
Uh
female co-host for that conversation, and in the middle of the conversation, he took off his shirt and started eating out of a pot in order to impress the
mm,
female. So, yeah,
oh, hate that.
yeah. And he even asked if it was pleasant to look at some point. It's
That's
yeah,
very strange.
it is.
Whales also have cultures, like different like pods of whales will have like different songs that other pods don't. Yeah, culture. Birds can have culture. Yeah, etc. Exactly. So, this idea that like culture is only found in humans is weird. Homo sapiens is a member of the genus Homo, which includes our own species of modern humans. It means wise man in Latin. Yeah. Uh huh. I can explain that members of the genus Homo are very similar to modern humans, and differences can be explained as the result of microevolutionary changes. I don't think you can actually, because macroevolution is by definition change from one species to another. So changes within Homo erectus are changes from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens are necessarily macroevolutionary changes. I understand that Lucy is a famous fossil because 40% of her bones were uncovered, making her one of the most complete known fossils among early hominins. I can explain that Australopithecines, such as Lucy, make poor human precursors because while they were capable of semi upright walking, their long forelimbs and other traits also indicate they spent significant amounts of time in trees, and their hand bones and other traits indicate that they knuckle walked. Because, okay, yes, they spent time in trees. That's spending time in trees does not mean that you cannot walk on the ground. I don't understand that argument. Um, they were also not knuckle walkers, as far as I remember. I don't think there's any evidence that Australopiths were knuckle walkers. We have Australopithecus afarensis, the tracks, the Laetoli footprints. Those are not knuckle walkers. They were walking upright. Now it wouldn't have been the same uh, degree of upright posture that we have, obviously, but it was upright. I can describe significant differences between the genus Australopithecus and the genus Homo, including body size, body shape, mode of locomotion, jaws and teeth, development, and brain size. Okay, but all of these also apply to other members of Homo. You can do this for every single species on the planet. So like this is silly. Homo erectus has a slightly different body shape, body size, mode of locomotion, jaws, and well, probably not mode of locomotion. That's probably the same. They have slightly different jaws and teeth compared to us. They have slightly different development. They have slightly different brain size compared to us. These are all different for Homo erectus compared to us. The same is true of like Neanderthals. You can do that, and
I love the
other members of
comments.
Homo.
I love the comments in chat. Smitty
Turkeys
says,
spend time in trees.
yeah,
Therefore, the forest floor is hot lava.
Yeah. And then Ember says, ducks swim, therefore they cannot fly.
That is very true.
Yeah. Why is it always one thing or another when it comes to creationists? It's either this or that. It can be both.
Well, because again, they have no conception of like biodiversity in general.
Mm-hmm.
So everything to them is either one or the other. There is no in between. Yeah, Afarensis pelvis makes knuckle walking very uncomfortable. Yeah, very true, Ember. Very true. I can explain that some scientists have claimed Homo habilis was a link between Australopithecus and Homo, but that prominent studies have found habilis is more similar to living apes than were other. Hold on a second. But prominent scientists have found Homo habilis is more similar to living apes than were other Australopithecines? Am I reading this correctly? Is this saying Homo habilis is more like other apes than it was to other Australopiths? Is that what that's saying?
That's what I make.
Similar to living apes than were other Australopithecines. Okay, wait. Okay, hold on. So by that logic, am I reading this like folks in the chat? Are we seeing the same thing? Because by that reasoning, Homo habilis would have to be basally derived with respect to all Australopiths. And I don't think anyone has ever derived that phylogeny. Ever. I don't think that's ever happened. That's what?
Well, what I think is strange is that he lumps in habilis within Australopithecines and then makes the claim, and therefore it should be classified within Australopithecus rather than Homo. Yeah, if you go that route, if you first lump it in and then say, well, we should now lump it in. It's a weird way of writing.
This is crazy. I got to tell Erica about this. So basically, they're saying that Homo habilis is like basally derived with respect to all other Australopiths. That's kind of insane. That's an absolutely bananas thing to say. I can explain that leading scientists have recognized a distinct gap between the ape-like members of Australopithecus and the human-like members of Homo, leading some scientists to propose a Big Bang theory of the origin of Homo. Yes, famously, Homo originated via a singularity about 2.5 million years ago.
Yeah.
That's how Homo originated. Then they rapidly expanded. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Okay. I can explain that some missing links have turned out to be frauds or wrongly interpreted fossils, and here we go. Including Piltdown Man. Yeah. We've talked about this before. Piltdown Man was a forgery made by a non-paleoanthropologist in an attempt to fool paleoanthropologists, and it really didn't fool anyone outside of England. Yeah, it was constructed from an orangutan jaw and a human skull, yeah. Ramapithecus, promoted as a human ancestor based solely on teeth and skull fragments. It was reinterpreted as an orangutan-like fossil. Yeah, that's true. It's in Ramapithecus is among the orangutans, the pongines. Ardipithecus ramidus, initially proposed as the most recent common ancestor of chimpanzees and humans, but found in poor condition and eventually reinterpreted as an ape-like creature, not a human ancestor. Well, again, none of these are human ancestors, except like maybe Homo erectus. Ardipithecus is basally derived compared to Australopiths, and then Sahelanthropus is more basal compared to Ardipithecus. But they're both hominins, right? They're not direct ancestors of Homo. Okay. Oh no.
What?
Oh no. Oh no. The next one's gonna be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, before we go to the next one, um,
Uh-huh.
missing links have turned out to be frauds or wrongly interpreted fossils. Let's talk about the missing links in the Bible. I mean, there's a famous landslide in Turkey that uh, Ron Wyatt said was the Ark. You don't hear creationists talking about this. Now we know that it's a landslide. We know that there's no boat. It's a boat-shaped landslide. It's not even the only one that is visible in that particular region, because there are more that look exactly the same that are smaller. Uh, so why are you coming up with all these frauds and never mentioning the ones that we've seen in creationism? How is that? Is that
Yeah.
some kind of a
Or the
bias?
Burdick print, or the Ica stones,
Oh yes,
or the Akambaro figures.
yeah, the Ica
All
stones
things
is,
that creationists lied about.
yeah. It's as if there's a bias where you can only point out the failures of your opponent. And again, Piltown Man was just, again, all about money. That was it.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
Someone wanted to make money,
Yeah.
and yeah, there was no scientist who accepted it from the get go.
Yeah.
Not a single one.
Yeah. It was literally, it was suspect with it. Like, as soon as papers came out about it from England, there were multiple scientists in like France and America who cast doubt on it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then like once the Australopiths started getting found, it made no sense in like human evolution at all, because they were like, whoa, the small jaw and the in with like the shape of the skull, it just didn't make any sense at all. You know, it didn't make any sense.
RJ says the habilis claims does stem from Casey Luskin.
No way, really?
Yeah,
really?
he has the link right there.
And there's a wastebasket taxon. Okay. Blah 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 blah. Sorry, I'm reading through. Habeline does not predate the earliest fossil evidence. Consequence could not have. Wait, hold on. Habeline remains do not predate the earliest fossil evidence of true members of Homo, which appear about 2 million years ago. Are they claiming Homo rudolfensis is a true member of Homo, but not habilis? Is that what they're saying? That's crazy. Okay. Like the Australopithecines, many features of habilis indicate they were more similar to modern apes than to. Well, this says. Okay. This says that the like the Australopithecines, many features of habilis indicate they were more similar to modern apes than to humans. Not that they were more similar to modern apes than to Australopiths. That's very different. According to Wood, Habilines grew their teeth rapidly like an African ape. In contrast, found the skull is most similar to baboons, relied less on bipedal behavior than what? Whoa, citation needed for that. I'm calling bogus on that claim. I'm calling bogus. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm gonna look this up because there's something that they're saying that sounds kind of insane. Oh, this is from 1994. Of course, they pick an article from like 30 years ago. The upright posture and obligatory bipedalism of modern humans are unique among living primates. The evolutionary history of this behavior has traditionally been pursued by functional analysis of the postcranial skeleton and the preserved footprint trails of fossil hominids. High resolution computed tomography was used to generate cross-sectional images of the bony labyrinth. Among the fossil hominids, the earliest species to demonstrate the modern human morphology is Homo erectus. In contrast, the semicircular canal dimensions in crania from Australopithecus resemble those of extant great apes. Among early Homo, the canal dimensions are unlike those seen in any of the hominids or great apes. Wait, and whereas those of STW 53. What is STW 53? STW 53. What is that a reference to? I guess we should say STW. Oops. W53. Here's a paper. I'm trying to figure out what this guy is. Specimen STW 53. We find evidence for sympatry of blah blah blah, and find evidence to assign the. Okay. Well. Okay. I'm. There's a lot of weird stuff. I'm trying to figure out what this guy is. It's hard to figure out because these references. Wow, it would take me time to go through all these references. Okay. Basically, press X to doubt is what I'm saying. I don't know. The overall morphology of Homo habilis is definitely not placing it outside of Australopiths. That's, again, like I said, that's crazy. And I'm not aware of anybody who thinks that. They're not providing any phylogenies in this paper. I'm not reading all this. This is way too much for right now. I'd have to read that and go through it later.
Or, as RJ said, we must discuss this in Rocks 2.
That's true. We could do that because we have a section on it. No, so we have outlined a strong case for the classification of STW 53 in Homo habilis. Okay. So basically they're looking at one single Homo habiline fossil, I guess. I don't know. Oh, I see what it's saying. Okay. I see what it's saying. I misunderstood. Okay. So what it's saying is relied less on bipedal behavior. So basically they're saying it's not directly intermediate between like Homo sapiens and Australopithecus, which I agree with. It probably isn't. What? Oh, implications of early hominid labyrinthine. Implications of early hominid labyrinthine. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Does it really say? They're claiming that this paper says that it's most similar to baboons? That the skull is most similar to baboons. I find that very hard to believe. I find that very difficult to believe. I'm so curious. I have to find this. Before we end the show, I have to know if they actually say this. I find that very hard to believe, though. Oh, crap. Dang, it does not say. We have explored. It's a pretty short article, though. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, the earliest among the fossil hominids investigated, the earliest species to demonstrate the modern human semicircular canal morphology is Homo erectus. Oops, sorry folks. Let me go back. Um, Hence, if the enlargement of the anterior and posterior canals is functionally related to human-like obligatory bipedalism, then at least in this respect, the vestibular apparatus of the Australopithecines was not adapted to this type of locomotor behavior. These observations support studies of the postcranial fossil record, which have concluded that, that H. erectus was an obligatory biped, whereas A. africanus showed a locomotor repertoire comprising facultative bipedalism as well as arboreal climbing. I'm trying to find. Okay, here, this might be it. Okay, so what it's referencing is this part right here. The specimen STW53, provisionally referred to as Homo habilis, has semicircular canal proportions not seen in any of the other fossil or extant hominids or great apes. Functional interpretation of this morphology can only be speculative, but the similarity with the canal proportions in large Cercopithecus suggests that STW53 relied less on bipedal behavior than the Australopithecines. Interestingly, similar observations were reached from an analysis of the postcranial bones of this other fossil, a specimen that has been assigned to the same species. Okay, so another Homo habilis. Phylogenetically, the unique labyrinth of STW53 represents an unlikely intermediate between the morphology seen in Australopithecines and Homo erectus. Okay, so basically, so basically what they're saying here is that this one bone, this one structure, this one structure in the ear is basically more similar to that of baboons. Therefore, it was not a biped. I don't buy that. I do not buy that argument. I've literally never heard this argument before. I've never heard this paper before. Description, new reconstruction, comparative anatomy. Here's a more recent paper from 2009. And this one, yeah. We find evidence for sympatry. We compare. Find compelling evidence to assign the latter specimen to Homo habilis as has been proposed. I'm curious about this paper also. I found a more recent paper that also mentions this fossil. I'm curious if they come to the same conclusions. Provides a detailed blah blah blah. Do they even reference? Okay, do they reference the paper? What is this? Spore, 1994. Sorry, folks. I'm very curious about. They don't reference this other paper at all. Whack. That's very interesting. Yes. No, they really don't. Huh. That's very interesting. It's almost like it seems to me that these other papers do not take their conclusions seriously. Perhaps. They're also saying that STW53 is a Homo habilis. I don't know. Huh? But they're not. This other paper is not. Yeah.
So I see myself as a transitional fossil because I'm old. Between those who adhere to the theory of evolution and the young Earth creationists, because I deal with both of them, being producer on Orange channel and doing my own stuff on my channel. So I've come up with the solution to this problem. I think we considering what just happened with Homo habilis and how far we got away from the thing that we were actually doing, I think we should
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
we should classify Homo habilis in the clade of squirrels because
Yeah. Yeah. This is fascinating. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look this up. It looks like so this one paper says that basically what this paper is saying is what it looks like based on my very preliminary look at it is it has one characteristic that seems to indicate it was less of a biped than Australopiths based on this one inner ear characteristic. Uh, I'll just say, okay, even if that's the case, I don't know that that's the case. It seems like this is very weird. I'll ask Erica about this as I'm not familiar. Um, but what it seems like to me is that they're trying to base the entire argument on this on Homo habilis not being a member of Homo on this one characteristic, and they're kind of ignoring all the other characteristics that it shares in or more in common with other Homo than with Australopiths or other great apes. So again, that's still dishonest.
basing a claim on one characteristic is basically a characteristic of the young Earth
Yeah,
creationist and
yeah.
the ID proponent. I mean, it's not that they haven't done that before. Just one
Yeah, it's
thing.
just I've never heard this claim before. This is a new one on me. So yeah, move on. It is time to move on. It's actually time to go. Yeah, sorry, I got off on that tangent. I'd never heard of that. So all right. Well, I guess we can go back to the three screens or the two screens this time.
The two screens. There we are.
Yeah, I'm used to having Nestle. Well, thank you everybody for showing up as always. This was
We should mention that Nestle isn't here because of this weird thing that he does is getting educated. That's the reason
yes.
why he's not here. So another thing you don't see often with young Earth creationists and ID proponents, where they can't contribute to an ongoing show because they're educating themselves. I mean,
Yeah, I actually I have my thesis defense for my master's degree is next Friday. So yeah, that'll be fun. Fun times. So oh, we'll see how that goes. So well, thank you everybody for being here and for watching the show. And we